congratulate the noble Lord Newby, in securing this hugely important debate. There are two themes to my contribution today: one, honesty, and two, clarity. Honesty in that this is part of the global financial crisis, which started in August 2007 with BNP Paribas stating that it suspended 3 funds that were related to subprime. As a result of that, at the time I said we had a banking crisis, which went into an economic crisis, which went into a political crisis, which is a social crisis. And the latter two now have equal resonance with the former. The political crisis we see in Greece, where the Prime Minister has lost his nerve, and it's now a straight choice between in or out. The sooner that's done, the better for us to get on with business. And the big question from that is, how do we maintain the integrity of the Eurozone and stop contagion? And when we remember that Italy's bond yields are 6.5% almost, compared to Germany's at 0.3%, this is unsustainable. This can't go on. And if you remember, Portugal and Ireland went for help to the fund when their bond yields were around about that price. On the social side, my lords, the ILO, the International Labour Organization, did a study and stated very clearly recently that the world economy is on the verge of a new jobs recession. In 45 out of the 118 countries that are examined, the risks of social unrest were there. And when the leaders meet at the G20 today, that social dimension should be in the background. I mentioned the issue of honesty. I think our own government have got to be honest. The Prime Minister has said he is not going to contribute to a Eurozone bailout, and the Chancellor has said that they are not going to contribute to an IMF bailout if it is going to be used for Europe. Now, given that £130 billion of exports are made to Europe every year, this is a false choice. And the sooner the government is honest with the people in saying that we support the IMF because it's in the interest of the larger global community, then the better on that. And there is a growth crisis in Europe at the moment. Germany in the last year, unemployment has increased, not seen for 2 years, and their manufacturing has contracted as a result of that. So Europe as a whole, my lords, is in a recession and is heading for a recession. And we have got to remember that. And in terms of sovereign debt crisis, where the private debt has been transferred to the government debt, sovereign debt crisis, I tell my lords that slow growth and deflation are the biggest risks for sovereign debt, and it will exacerbate the situation if we do not have growth. The issue facing us today is a lack of demand. My successor as chairman of the Treasury Committee, Andrew Tyree, put it quite clearly and succinctly when he said that the government lack a credible economic policy for growth. If that is the case, then we need clarity on that. Yesterday, along with the noble Lord Skidelsky and others, we were looking at the issue of a national investment bank, an investment bank which would invest in large infrastructure projects here, and which, by the way, would serve the interests of the country, because as far back as 1931 there was what was identified as a Macmillan gap. The Macmillan Commission looked that there was not adequate resources for British industry and small businesses. We have still to tackle that, and the present crisis is crying out for that. And Adam Posen, the Monetary Policy Committee member, says that the UK lacks a spare tyre, and really we have to get on with that issue. Why do I say the manufacturing industry is in such a serious situation? In the last 3 or 4 years, we have seen devaluation of the currency by about 30%. In a normal situation, that would lead to an export-led manufacturing boom. It has not done so, and therefore we need to ensure that we have organisations and facilities that mirror the German Mittelstand. At a time, noble lords, when there is cheap capital, when there are real negative interest rates, and when there is spare capacity in employment, then this is the time to invest in growth so that we come out of recession in the proper way. And when I talk about employment and capacity, that capacity is there, not least amongst young people. The unemployed 16 to 24-year-olds now, 991,000 unemployed. I know when I was a school teacher in Glasgow what the decimation was like in society when jobs were not available for young people. And it's very important that we take on that issue. And today there's a very, very depressing report out by Bernardo's, which says that 49% of the country agree that children are behaving like animals, and that society views children in a negative way. My lords, that message is wrong, both in fact and in principle. And if we give out the message that society has given up on young people, then young people will certainly give up on us. And it's overwhelming economic need, as well as a humanitarian need, for society to treasure young people. Let us show that today with increased urgency by factoring young people into our economic stability and growth agenda.